In the Shinjuku neighborhood, a man strains his meanderings. He asked to be given 4 pieces of this sweet potato, but afterward he decided to take 5. His household are such gluttons, and his wife won't have enough for one. He opened a correspondence with her. She wrote that the little ones were waiting for him. The man opened a photo with the children. At that time the traffic light turned green, and he, like all pedestrians, was about to cross the road. Suddenly, in an unusual way, blood began to ooze from his body. At the intersection near the east exit of Shinjuku Station, one man died a rather mysterious death. 8 years later, after school, friends gathered for a game of badminton. The boys were deciding which place they should go to. One of them asked Arakawa where he would go for summer vacation. The guy didn't care as long as the two of them went. He's all in his repertoire. The other suggested climbing Mount Tsurugi. His older brother had conquered it that year. Arakawa thought that if they'd like it, he'd like it too. He doesn't mind. He has to go home early, so they'll see each other tomorrow. The boys were not particularly happy about it. His mom has the night shift tonight, and it looks like he's going to the store for dinner. Onuki had already forgotten about his dad, but it'll be easier for him. And about the trip, it's better to the beach. They can even invite the girls. The main character remembers that he forgot to bring the sauce, so he decides to grab some later. He noticed the package by the door. The package caused him to have doubts, as he did not remember ordering anything from either of them. The recipient was Hayao Arakawa, that is, his father. Summer, 8 years ago, his father had suggested that Yadomi go camping during summer vacation. The boy remained silent in response, and afterward asked if he had already asked his mother. Yubana hates bugs, and his mom said she wanted to go to the hot springs. Hayao asked, what if the two of them go together? They would leave mom and Yubana at home, and Yadomi would get a break from being the eldest. Just the two of them. On summer vacation, he's with his dad. Journalists were always knocking on their door. Newspapers carried articles about the mysterious death of a teacher in Shinjuku. Yadomi stayed home most of that summer. He busied himself unpacking the package. If it was again one of those victim assistance parcels that came from murky firms, he would throw it out before his mother noticed. He wondered what was inside this capsule. When he finally opened it, its contents crumbled on him. Afterward, the boy fell asleep and woke up hearing someone's voice. The someone asked him to look at his right hand. Just don't freak out. His fingernails had gotten significantly longer. Yadomi gazed at them and didn't realize what it was. This was a reaction he hadn't expected. It is here, underneath the package's Velcro. The guy pulled out a skull from there, which said hello to him. At first he thought it was a toy, and there, somewhere inside, was a speaker. The skull said that despite his appearance, he was still alive. He could see him now. He suggested looking in the mirror. Skull congratulated him on the fact that he was now invisible, aka skeleton. The guy can use this power as he pleases. When he wants to become invisible, all he has to do is visualize. He can do this whenever he wants to go unnoticed. He has complete control over super strength. The owner of the skull realizes that so much has come down on him. It's quite normal that he's confused right now. But there's no need to panic. There is no risk or cost to this power. It's just a gift from him. Yadomi was quite calm about it. Skull asked if he had any questions. The boy inquired why he was doing this. The stranger confessed that he was curious to watch him use this power. He would be happy for Yadomi to share with him later what he had gotten out of it. He wondered if that was it. Then the boy wondered why Skull ignored him. Yadomi thinks he can come to terms with what happened. But even if he said to use the power however he wants, for example, if he stole the answers to the tests from the teacher's lounge, it's not like that would make the entrance exams any easier. Yadomi stopped outside the girls' locker room. One of the girls noticed Arakawa and thanked him. She recalled how he had lent her a biology notebook. He had helped her out a lot. The guy replied that it was nothing. The door to the locker room slammed shut, and he tried to distract himself from the thought of peeking. This was obviously bad. Yadomi purely hypothetically asked Onuki and Suganuma what they would do if they could become invisible. The boys found the question odd, but he explained that he was just curious. Suganuma would sneak into the girls' locker room and Onuki would steal the answers for the final exam. But Yadomi expected to hear other options. Onuki suggested doing a cosplay on Destamor. Suganuma picked up on the idea and suggested it would be better in Zion. The two of them just want to do a cosplay. The guys continued to speculate on the topic, but Yadomi asked them to leave it alone. He admitted that nothing had occurred to him. To him, such power was overkill. The power giver was surprised that he didn't even prank anyone. He seems like a pretty good kid. The kid replied that he was wrong. Rather, he has everything he needs right now. When dad died a mysterious death, it was such a mess, but now, mom works hard so they have money. Sis always eats his bullshit cooking. Even at school, everyone is nice to him. He doesn't need to hurt anyone. He is busy doing what he wants to do and that is enough. Yadomi thinks that's happiness. He thought about the fact that he couldn't decide how to use this power, and realized that now he had everything he wanted. All of it not without his help. So he is grateful to him. Skull, after a long silence, asked if he was free this weekend. The guy didn't expect to hear him say that. He wants to go somewhere. Yadomi informed his mom that he would be gone for a while. She asked what he should cook today. He suggested it would be better to ask Yubana. His sister also noticed that he was leaving. She thought it was strange that he needed to go for a walk on a Saturday morning. To a girl's house or something. Mom asked him not to laugh at him. Yadomi got off at the bus stop and took the skull out of his backpack. He asked if he was comfortable looking this way. The skull said it was fine. There's an observation deck about a minute away. He suggested we go there. The guy, hesitating, called him Skull, but he replied that his name was Takuto Yamamoto. Then he asked Yamamoto to lead him. Observing Yadomi in the last few days, he has to say that he is strange. I mean, an unusual skull shows up and lets ask for stuff and he was so calm about it. The guy called it an extra reason to go for a walk. He's always looking for new places. Yamamoto noticed that he didn't seem to care about the changes in his body. It surprised him, but it doesn't bother him. Yadomi didn't ask anything about him. Everyone was recognizing the guy. People were begging for details about his father. Skull asked what he thought had happened to his father, but it was hard for him to talk about himself. People passing nearby saw the skull in his hand. One of them got out of the car. Yadomi liked the scenery here. The boy lifted his skull so he could see it too. Yamamoto asked him to put it on the bench. He has something to tell him. At that moment someone turned to the guy. The invisible man asked to give him this skull. Yadomi asked if the skull knew him. Yamamoto replied that he was going to talk to him and asked him to pick it up. He suddenly told Arakawa to get down. His arms began to twist at a furious rate, and the crunching of bones was heard. The boy screamed in pain, and his skull fell to the ground. He told him to rather turn invisible. If he did, he would see his face and heal his wounds. The stranger called the guy his soldier. Yamamoto claimed to be the son of Hayao Arakawa. Then everything became clear to the invisible man, and Yadomi did not realize what. All the wounds had indeed healed. He didn't even know it was possible. No, he was the one who hadn't bothered to ask. The stranger saw that he was young. His eyes seemed strange to the guy. The man was surprised that the guy didn't know that. He has the same ones when he turns. He hasn't told him anything yet. Yamamoto replied that he was just about to. That didn't please the man. You should have told him right away. He was the one who killed his father. The man believed he was trying to skirt the issue. Yamamoto admitted as much. He drove Yadomi's father to his death. There is no excuse for that. He thought it would make him feel better if the guy was the kind of guy who bathed in power, but no. At the very least, he wished someone from the Arakawa family would thank him for giving that power. He longed for forgiveness. The man decided that was enough. Yadomi doesn't need the head of the man who killed his father. The boy asked what would happen to Yamamoto. The man will extract the core and then wipe it into dust. Yadomi was disturbed by the thought that the man wanted to kill him. The stranger said he was as straight as a dodo bird. One must be careful. After that, he made the guy feel unbearable pain again. Yadomi didn't understand how it worked. Yamamoto asked him to stop. He had already destroyed the guy's invisibility with his last attack. He realizes he can fight without him. Skull advised him not to waste his life fighting back. It was Yadomi who should have killed him. The man told him to take a break, and once he cooled down, to go home. He said goodbye to the man. Yamamoto felt sorry for the boy. He had ruined his life twice. Yadomi tried to stop him. This was not the outcome Skull had envisioned and asked him to believe him. Now that his train had left, he wished he had talked to Skull more. It's obviously a lot of work. Sticking your nose in the fire, trying not to get burned. It's too much. He remembered Yamamoto telling him that he was the one who should have killed him. That Skull, Takuto Yamamoto, was going to tell him that he had killed his father, only to have Yadomi condemn him. Would he really be able to kill? Mentally, he was transported back in time. He remembered his sister, he remembered his mother, and his father, and Yamamoto's regrets. The man's comrade was not pleased that he was so slow. He wouldn't go after them, would he? He was sure he had just spooked him. The man behind the wheel thought it would be easier to kill him. The man wasn't going to clean up the body. That kid's just a punk. Like many others, he's devoid of ideals and purpose and just wants to get high. The man is sure he'll forget everything and go back to his ordinary life. He's just an empty space. Suddenly, a silhouette appeared in front of the car, and the driver brakes sharply. No one immediately realized what had happened. But afterward, the man took it back. It was Yadomi. He's having a hard time deciding where to go on vacation, or even what he wants for dinner. He has neither willpower nor determination. Is his head in trouble? The man said the man who killed his father would die soon. Isn't that enough for him? Yamamoto didn't understand why the man had come back for him. Yadomi told him to shut up. The guy doesn't think he's the kind of guy who doesn't hesitate to do exploits. The man complimented that he wouldn't get off with a warning this time. He's already made up his mind, right? Yadomi doubted it, but he wants to decide for himself. He will decide. He just has to be given time and all the information. The man realized what the kid was. He didn't want to kill him, but he would have to. Yadomi said not to get ahead of himself. It only meant that a fight was inevitable. Arakawa started his first fight. Meanwhile, the girl was putting the necessary groceries into the cart. She was going to buy a whole mountain of chicken. As soon as she took a week-long course on chicken dishes, her cooking skills would reach a new level. The girl's reverie was interrupted by a sudden sound. It came from the pendant she was wearing. She couldn't tell if it was her imagination. The girl realized that she had to hurry. She asked the store employee to put everything back. As she ran away, she asked to imagine that she had received a message that her father had been mauled by a brown bear. That's the kind of emergency she had. At the end, she apologized once again. After that, the girl immediately started the car. She has no time to wait in line. Yadomi Arakawa, a high school student and the son of the man killed by the invisible man, Aka the skeleton. A guy who has buried his grief so deep that he doesn't have to face it at all. A snotty kid with no ideals and no purpose, wanting to live for his own pleasure. But after encountering an invisible skull and being drawn into a battle, something gleams in the guy's eyes that completely changes the man's mind. Sitting behind the wheel didn't advise him to go for it. First, the future opponent wanted to ask something. He said he wanted to decide for himself whether to kill the man who took his father's life. Skull tried to shout to Yadomi. The man asked what if suddenly the guy came to the conclusion that he couldn't nail him. Yadomi replied that at least let him stand trial. The man didn't understand how he would pull that off with an invisible skull that wasn't even human. The guy decided that apparently he needed time to think things over as well. He replied that it was out of the question. Yadomi finally heard Yamamoto. The skull asked to listen carefully. He was talking about blood. The boy should beware of his blood. The enemy was the first to strike. He told Kamara to shut his skull. Just wrap a towel around it or something. The driver didn't understand why Ramon said the name. He has to keep the car running. Ramon was going to finish the guy off here and now. The arm had healed again, but who knows how long Yadomi could hold out. At any rate, that liquid he's throwing around is the blood Yamamoto was talking about. It's quite dangerous. He'll have to dodge it somehow. The guy wondered how he could get the shard back. However, he needs to deprive his opponent of his strength. Luckily, while his arm was broken, he didn't make another attack. Does that mean he is incapable of successive lunges? That is, he is vulnerable after one. Then Yadomi's best chance is to make his move right after he throws blood again. But perhaps he can bleed from more than just his hand. Yadomi can't rule out the possibility that contact with him will smear him. One way or another, he won't be able to do it with his fists alone. It's time to play big. The guy said he keeps going around saying he's going to kill. Does he really want to kill him? They're on a mountain road now. A car could pass by at any moment. Yadomi doesn't know who they are, but they don't care if someone reports them to the police. Ramon recognized that this is certainly true. Is the guy hoping someone will drive by? Yadomi did not rule out the possibility that someone would drive by before he killed him. The man doesn't seem to be in the mood for close combat. So why didn't Yadomi just keep his distance from him? Let him seize the moment. Ramon replies that he is, it turns out, an even bigger coward than he thought. Let him continue to underestimate him. Yadomi will knock the ground out from under his feet. The guy noticed that he wasn't in a hurry at all. Apparently, he can't do consistent bloodletting after all. Kamara was getting more and more fed up with this. He suggested he finish it already. They should have just driven off when they hit him. There's about 5 meters between them. That's about the height of 3 adults, and he needs to instantly shorten the distance. Yadomi said that a man wouldn't do anything to a lone coward. Either he gives him the skull or they'll go to the police together. The boy pondered how many steps he needed to take to reach his goal. The choice is his. 1 step. Yadomi Arakawa caught up with the fleeing car on his own too. After a brief hesitation on the observation deck, he managed to catch up with the car in which the 2 men were traveling. Thanks to his muscles. When Yadomi Arakawa became invisible to avoid fatigue while descending a mountain, he discovered that he could build up muscle fibers at will. This iron pointer seems so light. With this ability, he can handle it, rushing to the van containing the skull, finding weapons to fight, forcing the enemy to attack in order to find an advantage. This is a major gamble. It was all a delicate art of balance. Yadomi Arakawa decided to risk making this move with a power as yet unknown to him. But Ramon suddenly concluded that it was predictable. Those muscles of his, only a basic skeleton ability. Winning is out of the question. The guy's body twisted and snapped in half. He was then run over by a van. Ramon saw that the guy could no longer override his invisibility. He appreciated his courage, although it might just be survival instinct. He told Kamara to drive forward a little. They won't kill him unless they crush his head. The driver asked if they had to use the van. Ramon replied that gasoline was cheaper than blood. The car drove over his body some more. Ramon kept his distance because he expected it to attack him with blood. But it seems he was wrong. Yadomi knew. Part of him knew that he was acting thoughtlessly. Even so, he remembered his father. At that moment, another car pulled out toward them. They found the skeleton behind the wheel. First, the girl would blow their car away. To do so, she used the power of levitation. She got out of the car, and with the same power she was going to finish off the offender. Yadomi wondered who she was. It was far from her first time fighting. Ramon aimed his attack at her, but the girl immediately repelled it and threw him away. She shouldn't have covered herself with her skirt, she had just bought it. The stranger turned to the one remaining in the car. She suggested a peaceful separation. There was no point in resisting. He should just give her the skull. Kamara didn't realize if it wasn't possible to start there instead of turning the van over. Yadomi didn't even notice he was out. During the fight, he appeared elsewhere. He appeared where his blood had fallen. The girl wondered if it was teleportation or matter transfer. Kamara returned the comrade, and they disappeared together, or only pretending to take him by surprise. No, if he wanted a fight, he would have attacked as soon as he was behind her. And he looked scared shitless. He chose peace, at least for now, and they threw the skull. Ramon wanted to know why he'd left the skull. With his blood, he could have easily taken it. Kamara knew she would have followed them. It was obvious from the look in her eyes that she had only warmed up. They only survived because she didn't try to kill them. Besides, Ramon had spent too much blood and was now exhausted. They lost the moment he decided to waste time on that kid. No need to dwell only on Yamamoto, right? It's just getting started. The girl checked the contents of the box. She exchanged a few words with Yamamoto, and then, gathering Yadomi in the air, lowered her to the ground. She asked if he had come here just for this. The boy replied that his things were not far away under a tree. Then the girl said to go get them. She would take him to the station after they bought him a sweater. Yadomi is sure she is not doing this out of the goodness of her heart. She complimented that if he's against it, she'll be stuck cleaning the car. She worried about his wounds, which have already healed, though it took more than that time. Yadomi asked who would clean the van. The girl asked not to sweat it, and she wasn't in the mood to talk about it. She says this in good faith. If he wants to get back to normal, now is the time. She has been told about Yadomi Arakawa's situation, and this skull agrees with her. Yamamoto has been silent all this time, right? That's what happens when you stick your nose where it doesn't belong. And she won't take responsibility if his shredded body is crushed by a car again. Yadomi remained silent. She looked at him awkwardly and asked what he was having for dinner tonight. The guy continued to remain silent, which annoyed her even more. He replied that Japanese burgers. His sister loves them, so his mom must have made these. The girl is having bento from the store for dinner, and all because it was interrupted. Today he barely managed to keep the opportunity to go back to his house and enjoy a hot meal. She wants everyone to cherish this way of life. Yadomi suddenly said at their table, "There is a chair that no one ever sits on." It was his father's seat. Wish he could bury it. Yadomi is not going to give up. He doesn't care about any skeletons. He has made up his mind that he would rather fight her than retreat now. The girl called him a fool. He doesn't even know how to defeat her. Yoroibata. Her name is Yoroibata, and don't let him blame her when he regrets it. She just needs to teach him, and tell him about skeletons rising and everything she knows about them. Yadomi informed Yubana that he was thinking of skipping school tomorrow. The girl asked what that had to do with her. He just needed some advice. She noticed that he's been acting kind of weird for a couple days now. Yadomi told her that he promised to meet someone and he doesn't know how to explain to his mom. Yubana was shocked at the thought of her naughty brother skipping classes to meet someone. She already thought that her deadbeat brother had found a girlfriend. Yoroibata promised to tell him about the skeletons, but she took the skull with her to discuss the details. Yadomi already thought they had ditched him. However, he decided to believe her. Yes, and it was unlikely that he would get anywhere if he started nagging. Invisible men who fight with blood and muscle. A skull named Takuto Yamamoto that killed his father, and those who hunt him. Yadomi is utterly confused. But the hardest part, how does he now communicate with the skull who claims to have killed his father? A few days later, he receives a phone call from Yoroibata. She knows it's unexpected, but is he free tomorrow morning? She just has something to do. Already after the call ended, the guy remembered that tomorrow is school. He's sure his mom will freak out if he skips class. Yubana was really beginning to think that he had really found a girlfriend. When Yadomi went out for a walk that weekend, he came back in brand new clothes. That can only mean one thing. They went on a shopping date last week. Yubana asked if he was dating a guy. Yadomi replied that it was a girl, which she caught him at. He complimented that it looked like they were going to Ibaraki. This alarmed her sister, because based on this she is an adult, and also with a car. The girl inquired if he himself was okay with it. Yadomi did not know, but he won't get anywhere if he doesn't trust her. He needs her to teach him something important. Yubana imagined what such an important thing a grown girl was going to teach him. Even though pandas are technically omnivores, she thinks people would still freak out if they suddenly started eating meat. The guy didn't realize what nonsense she was talking about. Yadomi informed his mom about the personnel file. She assumes it's no big deal, even if you have to miss a day of school. The woman didn't understand what he was so surprised about. The guy thought it was strange that she really didn't mind. He didn't even say what the deal was. If he can't tell now, she's sure he'll share it with her in the future, right? Yadomi promised to tell her for sure, but he'll have to deal with it himself first. The woman decided to make sure he wasn't thinking of doing anything wrong. The guy replied that he just decided to do it tomorrow. Not that. He was lying to her. Yubana kept thinking of a grown-up girl. She hoped she was very stylish. Yubana's speculation went beyond common sense. Meeting day, 11 o'clock in the morning. Yoroibata said they had arrived. Ibaraki Prefecture, near the river. Yadomi inquired the reason why they were here. She replied that everything has its time. The girl asked if he had any more questions for her. There were a bunch of them, but it all boiled down to one. Then the boy asked why his father was killed. Yoroibata said she didn't know. Yadomi was outraged. After all, he had come to find out. Yamamoto suddenly said that the one who killed him was his right-hand man. The guy assumed it was one of his underlings, but Yoroibata explained that he was speaking literally, his right hand. Skeletons are the result of humans researching to approach the level of extraterrestrial beings such as angels, demons, spirits, and monsters. In ancient times, a method was created by which one could become invisible, but then it was carefully concealed. However, there were those who tried to unearth this secret. Yamamoto was one of the members of this group. He was summoned as a test subject in an invisibility experiment. But a mistake was made in the process of the experiment. All his actions were rash and reckless. As a result, he turned into a mysterious invisible skeleton. And so until now everything has been quiet. But soon his buried bones came into motion on their own. It appeared that something had been summoned into their world, something that used his skeleton as an intermediary. Yadomi didn't realize what else that something was. Yoroibata knew he would latch onto it. She summoned him with her. The girl told him to remember one thing. From his bones was born something that moved of its own free will, and one of them stabbed his father right in the middle of Shinjuku for some unknown reason. At the time, the incident caused quite a stir because of its unusual circumstances. Although he knows that without her, the people who were planning to use the power of invisibility came to a discord over how to respond to the accident. As a result, most of them died or went missing. Some of them took responsibility for public safety, and coinciding with what appeared in Shinjuku, decided to wait and watch. Now, 8 years later, most of his bones are still missing. Yoroibata is a government agent conducting a search for the bones in secret to bring the situation under control. In brief, his father's death was the result of a man-made disaster caused by people chasing a dangerous force. If Yamamoto had not agreed to the experiment, perhaps none of this would have happened. The girl asked what Arakawa wanted to do. The guy felt that the whole world should be told about it, and that includes the fact that she is trying to hide it. The names and purposes of the people who discovered this power, the whereabouts of those missing, those in charge of public safety who chose to remain silent, and the one who sent it to him. Yadomi wants to reveal everything, at the very least, to make those involved even more notorious than his family. Yoroibata realized that it was not enough for him to know the big picture. The boy reminded her that she was going to tell him everything. The girl explained that the situation would soon become very dangerous and his life would turn into sheer madness. Yadomi remembered his family. Arakawa beat up a classmate, and the teacher waited for an explanation. Bringing smartphones to school is forbidden, but Nishioka and others say they had nothing to do with it. The boy explained that during lunch, they all watched his father's video together. Yadomi assumes he's just being selfish. Yoroibata remarked that he was completely hopeless. She asked him to give her his hand. The boy felt that her palm was sweaty. The girl called him careless. She threw him to the ground. Now he must become invisible. They came here to see it. The entity that appeared and uses Takuto Yamamoto's bones is called a vertebra with a ribbon ring. It is a mystical being that only skeletons can see. Where did it come from? How does it move? Why is it here? They don't know. The government has classified it as an organism. But surely it is beyond such concepts. A vertebra with a banded ring, or more simply a PLC. Yadomi didn't like the fact that she threw him in front of such a creeper without warning. Does she want to kill him? Yoroibata replied that he would have 20 minutes to fight him. If he doesn't die, they will move on to the more complicated part of the story. Next, she will tell about Yamamoto. If he is ready, they can begin. It's time to learn about the first method of fighting. A unique bloodbath. The PLC suddenly freaked out at him, which scared Yadomi. According to Yamamoto, the reason was because he had built up muscle. The PLCs react hostilely to the presence of a skeleton. The guy didn't like that he wasn't told about it earlier. Yamamoto admitted it was his fault, but Yadomi realized that it was his own fault for rushing into battle without listening. Skull said that if he's not up to it, he can always surrender. Yoroibata is ready to save him if anything. The boy turned his attention to her. The girl was quietly brewing coffee, which made him resent her. Yoroibata doesn't want to waste time, so he squeezes the most out of life. He may not be afraid. She's keeping an eye on things, and after saying that, the girl went back to her business. Yadomi realized that giving up was not an option. He is fast, and huge, and strong. The boy had no idea how he could fight such a monster. The next blow came at him. He got hit pretty good. Just a scratch. He had better ask Yamamoto to tell him what to do. The skull advised breaking the spine. Nothing else would help. His limbs will grow back, so he should forget about them. The only way to deprive him of his strength is to sever a vertebrae. The guy threw a huge rock and said it certainly sounds great on paper, but it doesn't in practice. Yamamoto suddenly told him to use a unique blood. Yadomi was immediately reminded of the weekend battle. Skeleton blood has peculiar effects. He suggested that Arakawa run to the river. With his right hand that Yoroibata Shoko handed to him, Yamamoto can show himself. He has created an invisible wall that this knuckle dragger cannot pass through. This is his unique blood. Arakawa can see it for himself. The boy realized that he too could something similar. He asked how he could use the blood. Yamamoto concluded that it was already a problem since he still didn't secrete it. Unique blood is the energy released from the skeleton's hands that can cause unusual phenomena. In fact, the term blood is only needed for ease of understanding. Yadomi must remember that it is different from the blood in his veins. That is why the shard can use it, even if only bones remain of it. It is not known what is required to produce this blood, and man cannot choose which power goes to him. In their situation, there is no point in relying on unique blood. They must go with the plan that Yoroibata suggested. That method would require Yadomi to rely on him. Yamamoto asked if that would suit him. The boy himself is not thrilled, but it's too late to refuse. To tell the truth, he personally doesn't care about Yamamoto. In his words, he's the one who should kill him. But Yadomi has decided that he absolutely doesn't care about what he wants. How can he be content to die when he can't even see his face? The boy only wants to share with the world the truth about his father's fate. And Yamamoto will be judged along with the others when the time comes, so he will allow a helping hand to reach out to him. Yadomi is determined to fight. He made a cut on his arm, and blood spurted from it. It was time for the execution of their plan with Yamamoto. The boy realized that such a small splash was of no use. It was time to put into action what they had prepared earlier. Yadomi told Yamamoto to get ready. Since the shard is helping him, I'll have to explain how his blood works. His skill doesn't build a wall. When his blood comes in contact with something, it draws a line and creates a powerful repulsive force in two opposite directions, as if creating a path. The ability to make a path, the unique blood of the Sea of Reeds. Yadomi slashed the opponent's body. He doesn't care if he gets hit. Yoroibata observed that he was doing quite well. The next blow was the decisive one. After that, the girl went to the office. After shackling the criminal's van, she offered them surrender, to which one of the two skeletons used his blood to escape from her. They also took a piece of Takuto Yamamoto, to which she responded. This concludes her report to Shirogami, the director of the skeleton division. The man said that even though she may be the head of the science department, failure is failure. It's not like her at all. And he remarks, it's odd that she didn't kill them. She is aware, after all, that she has a license to kill. Control of all skeletons. Skeletons of unknown origin should be apprehended and kept under constant surveillance. If they cannot be restrained, they must be disposed of properly. This must be done in the strictest secrecy. Whatever one does, it is all to protect the carefree lifestyle of the population. It is a rather dirty job, but they are obliged to perform it to the end. And just to be sure, he clarified whether those skeletons were only 2 at the scene of the crime. After the battle, Yodomi found that this knuckle was still moving. Yamamoto advised not to delay. It was dangerous to leave it moving. The boy admitted that he didn't look at this monster as a living creature, but it only came to him that he had killed it. Yodomi wondered if she herself would get in trouble with the government. Yoroibata revealed that the only thing they wanted to do upstairs was to cover up the existence of the skeletons. Without her, they would have studied Takuto Yamamoto at their place long ago. If the government gets wind of it, it's not impossible that they would be determined to imprison him. If that happens, Yodomi will be kept in solitary confinement under constant surveillance. And if he's troublesome, he'll be killed altogether. The boy was surprised that Yamamoto was calling it without price or risk. Skull replied that he was talking about the power itself. Yes, and the information he possessed was out of date. Stammering, he complimented that for as long as he could remember, things always didn't go the way he wanted them to. The boy thought he had jinxed him. Yoroibata offered to decide what to do next. If a stray dog is hunted, it should become a hunting dog. Anyway, they could try to make Yodomi a state agent like her. According to Yoroibata, there are 2 types of agents. Those tasked with destroying PLCs, like today, and those who seek out illegal skeletons. All of this, of course, is an extremely dangerous occupation. After what she saw today, the girl is confident that he is up to the task. But if he's not satisfied, they can think of something else. He has 3 reasons to agree. The first, he can lead a more or less peaceful life. The second, he will have access to whatever information regarding his father's death the state has. And 3, he will have a chance to make contact with those who have uncovered this power. Those who went underground after the incident 8 years ago. The guy decides he's certainly in, but believes it's not as easy as just giving consent. Yoroibata Savvy, the one who has the final say in all matters concerning skeletons, works in the High Department. The head of the Public Security Department, the director of the Anti-Skeleton Shirogami Division. Everything that happens next depends on what decision he makes. He is self-serving, efficient, and despises anything that causes trouble. He has a fine sense of ethics and pays little attention to the feelings of others. Both concluded that if Yodomi fusses over the truth about his father's death, and let it be a perfectly normal and understandable thing, he may well conclude that it would be easier to erase it. To continue living their lives, they need to convince him that the guy would make a useful ally. And to do that, they need to gather some materials. This PLC counts. He's done for the day. She still has to pave the way for things to go smoothly with the higher-ups, so the girl asked to give her some time. In the meantime, she has a favor to ask. Suganuma noticed that Arakawa had been lugging around that bag all day. He wondered what was in it. Yodomi said it was a camera for the school board. It's just too expensive to leave in the classroom. After secluding himself in the restroom, he took the shard out of the bag. Yamamoto noticed that he looked exhausted. Yodomi attributed it to the fact that he had been on pins and needles all day. Yoroibata then asked to protect Takuto Yamamoto and his right arm. It was quite possible that she would receive a surprise inspection from the Public Security Department. If they found out that she had hidden not only him but also Yamamoto, it would end badly, so asked her not to let him out of her sight in the coming days. Skull is counting on him. Then Yodomi was surprised that he had to take care of his head and also his right arm. Didn't he become a target for those 2? The girl replied, maybe. In their position, they can't rule out the possibility of them trying to get out at him. Still, he is the only one whose identity they have revealed. This hand is his protection, so he'll have to keep it safe too. He called Yoroibata, but the girl didn't answer. Yodomi asked if he was even comfortable in this bag. He only needs it for school time. Yamamoto asked not to worry, he was used to such a thing. Skull asked if it was better to keep it and his right hand separate to reduce the risk. The boy saw things differently. It's better not to separate them. As long as he's around, the hand acts like a bomb. Yamamoto's unique blood, a sea of reeds, will blow away anything in the vicinity. Yes, and her strength is more than enough to handle even a monster. If those 2 attack, he won't even have to fight. He'll just give them the bag. Then Yamamoto will activate his attack. They'll be torn to shreds, and they'll win. If it comes to that, Yoroibata told the guy that the Sea of Reeds was a relatively powerful force that could turn the tide. Instead of worrying about the risk of stealing both of them, he decided that it would be more useful to think about how to use them in case. Yadomi decided to ask the skull something, namely how old is he, and could he help him with his homework if he remembered school. Yamamoto didn't understand why such a mundane question all of a sudden. He thought it was strange that he had come to the roof. The boy admitted that this was the first time he was breaking school rules. This is certainly not an observation deck, but he figured if he was going to talk, it would be with a good view. He doesn't feel like messing with others. Even in the most trivial things, Yadomi ends up hitting his interlocutor's sore spot or telling things about himself that he shouldn't. He genuinely hates it. When they met, he didn't ask Yamamoto anything. It seemed to him that it would be an agony. He didn't want any trouble and didn't want to get involved in anything. But he could not fight while remaining like this. To begin, Yadomi asked him to tell him who he was before he became like this and what he desired when he decided to become a skeleton. The skull might consider this a request from the one whose forgiveness he seeks. Yamamoto noticed that he was overthinking. It's like cowardice. Of course he'll tell him everything. He's not sure if he'll be able to summarize it, but he'll try. He was 22 at the time. The man asked if Yoroibata would answer. She decided to postpone the phone conversation. He moved on to the topic. She would like Takabane's opinion on something before discussing it with management. The girl asked if he remembered Hayao Arakawa, who had died 8 years ago. Her colleague thought it was impossible to forget such a thing. Yadomi realized that they were alone at home. Yamamoto could talk. He'll make dinner before mom comes back. He'd better change his clothes first, though. Skull asked him to leave it in his bag until the boy changed his clothes. Otherwise he's kind of uncomfortable. Yadomi is only tense about one thing, about Yoroibata. She talked about how she would tell him everything, but he never found out why she was lying to her own and covering for them. He asked if Yamamoto had heard anything. Skull can only guess what's on her mind, but he doesn't think it's worth speaking for her. He'd like to respect her as much as Yadomi does. Then the boy decides to ask her directly. Yamamoto doesn't even know if the answer will make him happy. He replied that he could understand a long time ago, whether someone is throwing around words or not. Entering the room, Yadomi saw Ramon sitting on his bed. He said he had a very tiny room. The man apologized for coming in with his shoes on, but he would pass with them. Standing outside the door, Kamara stole his unique blood. The boy plopped down on the floor. Had he fallen somewhere? It had to be an ability. Yadomi signaled Yamamoto to turn on the Sea of Reeds, but Skull could see that things had already gone against their plan. The boy woke up in the car, where he saw a girl sitting next to him. The driver, in response to his surprise, said it was his granddaughter. Ramon said he would go with them on a little excursion, even though he didn't much like it. Yadomi Arakawa, high school student. His father was victimized by a skeleton and died, and the children are left without an explanation about what happened. The boy determined to uncover the truth about his father's death. At this point, kidnapped by a group hunting for the invisible skull of Takuto Yamamoto, with no idea where they're going. Ramon advised him not to humor him. He would have no trouble breaking his neck. The man asked how things were going with Kamara. He took out a transmitter from his bag. More like a simple missing person beacon, though. That's all the position can transmit, and he sure as hell can't get one built into his skull. Lucky they got Takuto Yamamoto's hand in addition to the head. Riho was asked to hold his right hand. The guy wondered who she was. Ramon told him that they wouldn't touch him, just let him keep his head down. He would keep his questions to himself. He could only talk if he got carsick. Ramon will keep his bag and phone, and his skull. Yadomi says he can't give up Yamamoto. He just can't. The man reminded him that the guy's life is on the line and that's his answer. Yadomi said no. He can't hand over his partner. He's going to reveal all about the incident from 8 years ago, and Yamamoto is going to help him do it. They could have quietly killed him by now, which means there's a reason to kidnap him. Ramon didn't like his antics and squeezed his neck harder. The driver asked for a seatbelt. They pull onto the highway. He also asked Ramon to let him talk to the guy first. They are still not sure if this boy is their enemy, especially the chairman promised him a reward. From these words, Yadomi realized that they had a chief. The old man apologized for his harsh methods. Their chairman has a desire to negotiate without interference, that is, without Yoroibata, so they had no choice but to act like this. His name is Haiji Kunakumo. Personally, he would like them to get along. He asked his granddaughter Riho to say hello. The girl introduced herself. Yadomi didn't understand what was wrong with her. Haiji is sure he was surprised to see a child here. And yes, she's not a skeleton. Since they have the ability to regenerate, psychologically it's much easier for them to resort to violence, and they would prefer to avoid conflict. The old man wants to show that they are not aggressive by putting one of his apparently harmless relatives in the seat next to him. Yamagami is surprised that he uses the kin as a guarantee. Haiji said Riho is doing a great job. They have her smart. The guy didn't know what the hell he was thinking, or where they were even going. The van came to a stop. Ramon told Yadomi to put on her slippers. The boy wondered where they were. Kamara told him it was a recently closed hotel built during the bubble. For the public, he expects demolition, but their boss bought it back and is running it. He told Riho to take his right hand to his room. Kamara explained that way Yadomi would not be able to apply Yamamoto's unique blood. They know quite a bit about skeletons and understand the power of that arm perfectly. Ramon told him not to hang his nose. It seems everyone had come to meet him. The guy was already waiting. All these people were skeletons, but they didn't seem like a cohesive group to him. One of them reported that the chief had stepped out for a while. Apparently his call had been delayed. He told the guy not to think of throwing out any surprises. Everyone here is a skeleton. Yamamoto asked if he made them all like this. Technically it's impossible, provided that the study of skeletons conducted 8 years ago has continued in secrecy for the intervening years. He doesn't know who they are. At first Yamamoto thought they were just some bandits who got hold of scientific materials. But it seems that's not the case. Someone here was directly involved in research 8 years ago. Ramon confirmed it. Personally, he had only recently learned about the skeletons. When he hit a dead end in his search, this man came to him. Since then, he has been helping him with the skeletons in exchange for information for himself. Moreover, he has gathered people and money from all over the world and is now the chairman of their group. Personnel and money. Yamamoto knew one person who succeeded in this. The chief apologized for keeping him waiting. That man's name was Toru Tatara. Yadomi was surprised that he began with a full bow. Haiji told him that he had frightened Arakawa. Their collective seemed strange to the boy. The chief decided to start over. He's Toru Tatara. He deeply regrets what happened to his father. Yamamoto said they hadn't seen each other for a long time. It seems that he is still alive. The chief also remarks that the skull sounds better than he looks, but his demeanor has changed. He used to be so polite. Yamamoto replied that because of his ego, the member of the Arakawa family whom he had harmed was drawn into his skeleton war. Toru is no better than he is, so what politeness can we talk about? If he is so cultured, could it not be dispensed with? The chief stated that he was really sorry that Arakawa's father was victimized. Nevertheless, he has no intention of stopping his research. Time heals, and he thinks they can find common ground. Yadomi, enraged, wanted to hit the chief, and Skull tried to stop him. But Haiji confesses that he put something in his slippers. A unique blood, quantum leap, was used. His feet fell through the floor. The old man asked him to calm down. If he covers his entire body with his blood, the guy will just keep falling endlessly. And he doesn't want that. The chief would like Arakawa to cooperate with them if possible. They, Gig Society, have a dream. A plan to turn all of humanity into skeletons. Yoroibata wanted a handwritten receipt. The name could be left blank. She also asked that special expenses be written in a note. It bothered her that Arakawa hadn't left an evening message and that the beacon in Takudo Yamamoto's bag had gone off after the sudden interference. Something had definitely happened. The girl realized that they had managed to pull off the attack, and it was her fault for underestimating them. Looks like it's the last hope. It's time to stop playing dumb. Skeletons are created from a particular mollusk. It is called a mollusk only because of its resemblance to bivalves, but it is actually synthetic rather than organic. Moreover, this clam is invisible to the naked eye. If you dip it in a mixture of water, salt and sand and then leave it for 2 weeks, in rare cases, something will be born inside. For convenience, they nicknamed it the pearl worm, although the prevailing theory now is that it is an immature form of PLC. The worm reacts aggressively to some people, and those to whom it attaches itself will acquire the ability to become invisible. This is the process by which a person becomes a skeleton. The most important thing for them was that the environment of the experiment significantly affects the likelihood of creating a pearl worm, and the characteristics of the pearl worm. They waited for them to emerge under a variety of conditions. Each day brought new discoveries, and their egos spurred them to keep experimenting. Until finally they made a grave mistake that led to the creation of the PLC. They do their research in this issue. Although Yamamoto thinks it looks more like a shabby laboratory, he guesses that all those bottles lined up in rows are all the basis for skeletons. First, the chief wants Arakawa to give him Takudo Yamamoto's right arm. It will be the raw material for creating new clams. Yadomi asked what is the point of turning all of humanity into skeletons. Toru Tatara replied that it was for the good of the world. When humanity gains the power of skeletons, most of society's problems will fade away. the world will be a better place, and to do so, he must create pearl worms that are compatible with all humans. This is far from an idle fantasy. The guy recalled that his father died because of his experiments. The man stated that if his father had been a skeleton, he would still be alive. As the research progresses, there will be many more people saved than those who suffer. Their Kinnikumo was quite forgetful. By becoming a skeleton, a person gains the ability to restore their body to a better state. Deterioration of brain function occurs as a side effect only in rare cases, but even so this panacea surpasses anything in modern medicine. By making his long-term memory centers invisible, the old man can stop the progression of the disease. By doing so, he can still take care of himself and his granddaughter in some way. He agrees to force the entire society to accept skeletalization, for the sake of himself and Riho's future. The chief suggests that the guy take a vacation. He probably has things he wants to discuss with Yamamoto. He'd like Yadomi to think hard about whether there's any point in the government hiding the miraculous power of skeletons from the public. After that, the door slammed shut. The shower and toilet are at his disposal. More food would be brought to him later. That's all. The room had a shallow bathtub and no window. It looked like a back room for hotel employees. Yadomi inquired about Yamamoto's opinion after all they had heard, but their conversation was interrupted by the sound of the door opening. It was Riho, who gestured for silence. The guy didn't understand why that old man's granddaughter was here. Ramon suggested that they split into 3 groups of 2 people each and do a 3-hour perimeter watch. He wouldn't be surprised if the government sent its anti-skeleton crew to spy on them. If they notice anything unusual, they should immediately inform the others. He will do as Tatara asks, but he still doesn't agree to use so many people for the sake of Arakawa's child. The chief says that his selfishness will have to be tolerated. Speaking of selfishness, he said to take Kamara off patrol. It would be better for them to keep him on standby. His unique blood would prove more useful in case of an attack. Kamara asked who would replace him then. Ramon decided that he could handle it alone, and Kunikumo volunteered to help. Ramon thought he should babysit Riho, but the old man was sure she could handle herself. Lately Riho says she can go to bed by herself. Girls grow up so fast. On the sheet, the girl wrote that she would come back after she hid in the next room. She even made up an excuse to tell those on guard. Riho asked not to worry. She would leave him this notebook and pen. Only he should be careful. The guy found out that they are eavesdropping and this room is bugged. For those who want him to join them, they show no trust. Yadomi asked why this room. Riho advised to run away unless he wanted to join them. He wanted to know where the invisible right hand that had been given to her was, but the girl could not say. He didn't understand why she had come at all, but that wouldn't help the case. He would only frighten her with unnecessary questions. Instead, he would ask what had become of the rest of her family. Riho left him the notebook and left. Yadomi wrote to Yamamoto that she had told him about their numbers and he has no intention of helping this Tatara with his dream. They will wait for the right moment and run away. The guy asked to say that he had kept quiet about something, for those who are eavesdropping. Skull uttered these words. Yadomi replied that he just needed to think about the best course of action. Riho wrote that she doesn't know, but she's sure he's doing it for her. She doesn't want anyone to fight. Ramon was surprised they were playing this early. Turns out they didn't finish yesterday and left for their shift. He was offered to join in, but he declined. Tatara had also been eavesdropping all night. Arakawa and Yamamoto are the quiet ones. Ramon still doesn't understand why this kid is so important to Tatara. The chief explains that he has his own ideas about it. He'd like to have Yadomi and that skull on hand whenever he needs it. Ramon asked why he was provoking Arakawa then. The chief's actions could not be called logical. The man replied that he didn't want to upset him. After all, he decided that being frank now would make it easier later, even though it came out sideways for him. How the other members tolerate Tatara is a mystery to Ramon. The chief said that Ramon never understood anything. None of them stayed here because they like him. He got a call on the radio from the 2 on patrol. Suddenly a man flew into the room right in front of his nose through the window. Everyone present sounded the alarm. Their up on a tree fell on them. Yoroibata ordered everyone to lie down on the ground and put their hands behind their heads. The impending battle was inevitable. Yoroibata stated that their skeletonization was considered a crime. She used the poltergeist's unique blood. Ramon saw that the couches were only a ruse. The real threat is a controlled charge. It is capable of condensing and throwing its blood before putting it into action. One hit and you hang in the air. One of the skeletons discovered that she had hidden her blood in the blind spot of the couch from the start. Ramon asked Nishiki to bitch about it. Using his unique blood, he twisted his arm. It was too much for a man. but Ramon thought anything was better than getting hit. Yoroibata noticed that he managed to cut off his arm before the poltergeist engulfed his entire body. What cruel countermeasures. At this time, the opponent was about to attack from the other side. The girl realized that he was too strong. This was something she had not expected. This man is on a completely different level. The opponents surrounded her. For her alone, there were too many of them to break through with brute force. They thought she had retreated, but Yoroibata threw the log again. The sound came from the top floor. The skeletons didn't know what to do. This woman would level the building. Tatara decided that they should assess the situation first, and would discuss as they went. Nishiki didn't think they had time to loiter. They don't know when she'll break in again. The chief thought it was unlikely. She's a veteran of the anti-skeleton unit, which means she's well versed in the use of unique blood. Many of them can apply their blood to the floor and walls to create traps. With that in mind, she'll assume they've set traps everywhere. She won't force things since they are in the majority. No, she'd rather fight in the open. She throws these logs here just to lure them out. The chief remembered that Kateto was on patrol with Reidu and asked where he was. The girl told him that Yoroibata had caught him first. He is probably immobilized. In that case, Tatara offered to rescue Reidu and then escape. The boy said she was wrong. Skeletonization technology deserves everyone. Why do they seek to suppress it? Yoroibata replied that if she were him, she would keep quiet since he didn't want to put out the information. He felt that their intentions were unfair. The girl noticed that the enemy had quieted down. Perhaps they were preparing to storm her. She thought about offering that rampaging man in exchange for Arakawa, but immediately changed her mind. That man was not the type to bargain with. Protecting Arakawa and capturing the skeletons would be risky. Tatara was going to make the lab safe by using his blood. Nishiki and Kateto are wounded, so he has assigned them to the task of collecting their equipment. They can't abandon these precious clams. Kunikumo brought Kamara in. The boy thought he was done for when he got hit by a log. The chief asked Kunikuma to handle Azuma's rescue. It seems he never managed to leave the room because of the tree she threw. It was time to shine his special blood. The old man asked what about Riho and Takuto Yamamoto's hand. The chief ordered them to take care of Azuma first. They'll take the hand later. They need his unique blood to escape from here as soon as possible. He asked me to understand him. Kunikuma coldly agreed. A woman's voice resounded throughout the room. Yoroibata from the skeleton squad is speaking. She knows that they have kidnapped an innocent boy. In addition, the study of skeleton is forbidden. If they resist, they will be punished accordingly. All those who do not wish violence, let them take to the streets. Kamara thought she was mocking. They know it won't end well even if they surrender. Ramon thought it was a bit of a stretch. It's not for them, but for Arakawa. If he hears it, he'll know that help has arrived. Ramon explained to Tatara that they had no reason to let Arakawa live. He's the kind of kid who will stab you in the back if he gets the chance. He asked for his opinion. The chief realized they'd wasted their time, but perhaps it was best to nip the attempt in the bud. Takawako watches the stairs to the basement where Arakawa is. The chief says to meet her and get rid of him together. As for the government agent, he instructs Kish to distract her. He doesn't really want to mess with her, but he'll handle it. So they have a plan that Tatara proposed to put into action. Kunikuma will recover Azuma and then take Takuto Yamamoto's right arm. Kishu will thwart Ms. Yoroibata's attacks. The rest of the members will prepare to retreat, and Ramon will head to the basement. The chief asked to kill Yadomi Arakawa. Yoroibata is hitting indiscriminately. Ramon tried to contact Takawako, but the girl didn't answer. He saw a dent that could have been from one of those logs, which put him in doubt. They were holding Arakawa on the -2nd floor. He hadn't washed out yet, after all. Ramon took hold of the doorknob as suddenly someone from inside kicked it. It was the work of Takabana. Behind the man, Ramon noticed Takawako. He had either killed her or it was his unique blood. From their actions, Takabana assumes he's around here somewhere. Where are they keeping him? Their anti-skeleton unit will protect Yadomi Arakawa. Roof. Yoroibata hopes Takabana managed to sneak in unnoticed. She called for reinforcements when the situation escalated, but she assigned him the most dangerous task. She is uneasy at the mere thought of it. She's got enough on her plate. Kishu demanded the release of their man. Yoroibata was surprised that the tough nut was sticking around here alone. Minus the 2nd floor. Basement. Yadomi found no guards and assumed Yoroibata had taken care of that. Yamamoto suggested waiting it out as it was not safe here. There's no need to force himself. He can see him shaking. The guy replied that when he fought with the PLC, there was no such thing. Skull explained that it was the adrenaline talking then. Besides, it's completely different now. The enemy could be waiting around every corner, and you can't expect a fair fight from them. Yadomi's instincts don't lie. One mistake will cost him his life. The boy agrees with him. But no, he can't sit idly by. They must find his right hand. Yadomi asked if he knew where it might be. Yamamoto will realize once they get closer, but it's still dangerous. He doesn't vouch for the boy's survival. Skull advised it's best to listen to reason, but it's not himself that Yadomi fears now. When asked what had become of her family members, Riho replied that her father was living apart. He often argued with her mother and then decided that the two of them would be better off without him. Her mom took her to her grandfather's house. He lived with her grandmother, who was always sick, and then grandma left. The old man said she was very far away now. Grandpa and mom also fought a lot. Haiji Kunikumo reminded her that she was her mother. Why did she huddle in her room since she came here? Doesn't she care about her daughter's future? For once, let her take responsibility. The woman didn't understand who he thought he was. He didn't do a damn thing for his kids. She'd never had an example of a parent, her very birth a mistake. The old man replied that he was sorry to hear that. Even the power of a skeleton cannot heal mental wounds. He asked to understand that it was for Riho's sake. The girl saw her mother fall through the floor. The grandfather said that her mom was far away. She couldn't live with her anymore. He thought that Riho could not equal other children, and it was her mother's fault and his. She wouldn't give her a normal life, but with skeleton strength he could settle her. The girl doesn't understand what her grandfather is talking about. She doesn't know, but she's sure he's doing it for her. She doesn't want anyone to fight. As Yamamoto realized, he is looking for his hand in order to protect Riho Kunikumo. The boy felt that he couldn't leave her with her mother's killer. He needs to talk to her. Skull was sure that this one was definitely none of his business anymore. He knows it sounded harsh, but it's better to leave the showdown to Yoroibata, including the return of his hand. No one would reproach him for such a situation. Yadomi is risking his life. What if they are waiting for him there? Even if he's lucky, what guarantee is there that she won't betray him to the enemy? He doesn't know if she needs his help. Why is he sticking his neck out for someone else? The guy agrees with him, but he's not doing it for her. If he doesn't go, sooner or later he will be plagued with remorse. Both in the case of his father and this girl, his goal is the same, so it is a struggle to live with his head held high. Riho huddled in a corner, clutching Yamamoto's arm, and terror settled on her face. The girl didn't know what she should do. Grandpa will be upset if she loses her hand. He's trying so hard for her. Everything he does is all for her future. Stammering, she asked to stay away. Yadomi replied that he would not take a step closer. He asked her to answer him one question, and depending on her answer, he would help her. If she doesn't want to give her hand, he won't take offense. Dai asked if Riho had someone to go to if she could escape from here and her grandfather. The girl remembered her father, and replied that to him. She also returned Yamamoto's right hand. Yadomi no longer shook it. Haiji Kunikumo peeked into the room. By now the guy had already built up his muscles. The old man didn't understand how Arakawa got into Riho's room. He did not find his granddaughter here. Fear appeared on his face and he asked where she was. Yadomi declared that she did not belong here. Not him, not the old man, and certainly not Riho. Yadomi explained that Riho wanted to get away from people like him and the entire gig society. The old man demanded to know where his granddaughter was. Giga told him to surrender to the police. If he is really doing this for her, there are other ways. Kunikuma's patience had run out. Yamamoto realized he was attacking. Yadomi decided to fight Haiji Kunikuma here. Their goal is to escape from here with Riho, who will be 2 rooms away from them. They don't have to deal with whoever comes after their right-hand man, but it will be more reliable if they lose one of their own. And with Yamamoto's unique blood, this is the best place to set a trap. Yamamoto wondered, what if someone else came for the hand? Yadomi then decided that they would just let them have a go. Skull asked if he still wanted to deal with Kunikumo. The guy replied that this old man, if Riho's words are to be believed, killed her family with his power. Of course, no body or evidence can be found. The police probably think they are missing. If they let him get away before the truth about the skeletons is revealed, then Riho will spend the rest of his life gnawing on his elbows. The perpetrator must recognize that pain himself. The old man once again asked where his granddaughter was, but Yadomi asked him not to be afraid. They both could finish each other off with one blow, and the muscle buildup blows away all the difference in age and height. Yadomi has played with death before. That's why he's more careful and much more accurate this time. He threw the pen at him. It went over the old man's head and banged against the wall. His unique blood allows objects to pass through. How's he supposed to fight a guy like that? 100%. Most of his body is covered in blood. Kunikumo stated that if he keeps quiet, he'll let him blame himself. He will send the guy straight to the core of the earth. The old man began to approach him. That other guy would have already attacked with blood, But this old man didn't. Why not? There must be a reason. Is the energy running out? Then it won't be able to cover his entire body. Then at the distance, Yadomi has the advantage. The important thing is to take your time. Everything the guy has thought of and prepared. It's time to put the plan into action. Yamamoto used his unique blood, a sea of reeds. All of his power descended upon his opponent. Yadomi held Yamamoto's right arm tightly. For the first time from his unique blood, the guy's foot fell through the floor, which meant that gravity was still acting on him, whereas the sea of reeds creates a repulsive force in 2 directions. But it didn't work. He used his unique blood, a quantum leap. The old man also built up muscle. Katato asked if he could definitely defeat someone stronger than himself. The chief did not rule out the likelihood of that. Kishu fights on the roof with Yoroibata. They all realize how dangerous she is. The question then arose as to why he sent Kishu alone. Without thinking long, Tatara replied that the skeletons. It is not only invisibility. That's what they call beings who are in the developmental stage but have already surpassed humans. The time one can spend in the skeleton state decreases as they heal themselves or use powers. After leaving the skeleton state, it takes about 10 minutes to recharge. Therefore, the one who has saved up his strength wins the battle. That's all they know right now. The theory of combat has yet to be refined. In this matter they are wandering in the dark. Katato wanted to speak of Yoroibata's experience and unique blood, but Tatara interrupted that it was in her that all fear spoke. Plus he has a safety net. This time, Kishu will definitely come back alive. Simply put, no matter what your enemy is, if they squander the power, victory is yours. Like in the movies, it doesn't matter how fast the car is, what matters is who was the last one to turn on the NAS. Neither experience nor unique blood play a special role, and the cold calculation of risks and waste of energy decides the outcome of the battle. Yadomi cut off his leg. The most important thing here is the legs. Even if his entire body is covered in the old man's blood, if he cuts off and recovers his leg, he will not fall through the floor. And since he manages to stand on the floor, then this is his weak point. Both hit each other at the same time. Hunikumo fell to the floor and hit his back. If he didn't turn off his power, he would just fly into the ground. Yadomi said to activate his arm. In his mind, he already had a picture of what to do next.